Picture this. She rolled down her tinted window, flashed that perfect HO president smile and cooed, "Ethan, sweetie, it's just a tiny shortcut, for the greater good." Then she gunned her white Mercedes straight across my private driveway like it was public property, leaving tire tracks in my wife's prize rose beds. I stood there on the porch, the same guy the entire Willow Creek HOA had already branded that antisocial recluse, thanks to her last rumor campaign, and I didn't say a word. But inside, I was smiling, because I'd been watching. And I knew exactly how this story was going to end. It started 3 months earlier, right after the monthly HOA meeting where Victoria Langford, our fearless leader with the tennis bracelet tan and the voice that could cut glass, had publicly shamed me for ruining neighborhood aesthetics. My crime? Installing solar panels on my roof without her personal approval. She stood at the podium in her pastel blazer, clutching the microphone like a weapon, and sighed theatrically. "Neighbors, we all want green energy, but Ethan's panels are an eyesore. Some of us put community harmony first." The room nodded like trained seals. Within 48 hours, the Willow Creek Facebook group was flooded with posts calling me anti-community, a hoarder, and my personal favorite, the guy who probably doesn't even recycle. My wife, 8 months pregnant with our first, cried in the kitchen while scrolling. I just closed the laptop. I'd learned the hard way that arguing with Victoria was like arguing with a parking ticket, pointless and expensive. So I stayed quiet. I smiled at the grocery store when neighbors suddenly remembered urgent phone calls. I waved back when they pretended not to see me. And I watched. That's why I noticed the very first time Victoria's Mercedes glided across the narrow service lane that runs along the back of my property. The lane wasn't part of the HOA covenants. It was my grandfather's old access road to the county highway, private, posted, and mine. It saved exactly 9 minutes off the usual commute through the Maple Avenue nightmare. Victoria had clearly done her homework. She slowed at the end of my driveway, checked her mirrors like she was on a public street, then accelerated past my garage with the casual confidence of someone who'd never been told no in her life. I stepped out, polite as a church usher. "Victoria, this is private property. The no trespassing signs are hard to miss." She braked, rolled the window down halfway, and gave me the smile that had probably closed 1,000 bake sale deals. "Oh, Ethan. Don't be dramatic. It's literally 30 seconds of pavement. The traffic on Maple is killing the planet. One little shortcut helps everyone. Community cooperation, remember?" She said the last part like she was quoting scripture. Then she winked, actually winked, and drove off, leaving a faint cloud of expensive perfume and crushed rose petals in her wake. By the end of the week, it wasn't just her. Susan from 412 Oak, Victoria's best friend and vice president, followed the next morning. Then Bob Clark in his lifted F-150. By Friday, 5 different cars were using my lane like it was a paid toll road. I installed bright orange cones. Victoria simply drove around them, texting while she did it. I added reflective private drive and no through traffic signs. She posted a photo of them in the HOA group with the caption, "Some residents still don't understand the spirit of cooperation." 37 likes. My wife, Claire, stood at the kitchen window rubbing her belly and watching another SUV cut across our lawn. "They're killing the roses I planted for the baby's room," she whispered. Her voice cracked on the last word. I put my arm around her and said nothing. But that night, after she fell asleep, I opened my laptop and started reading county ordinances, permit requirements, and something called retractable bollards. I printed every page and filed them away like evidence. Victoria thought she was winning. She had no idea I was just getting started. The second week brought the real fun. Victoria began using the lane twice a day, morning latte run and evening Pilates. She even started waving at me like we were old golf buddies. "Morning, neighbor. Saving the planet one shortcut at a time," she'd call out, completely ignoring the tire ruts carving through Claire's flower beds. The roses, Claire's pride and joy, were now flattened into sad brown pancakes. The doctor had warned us about stress during the last trimester. Every time an engine revved past our bedroom window at 6:45 a.m., Claire's blood pressure monitor beeped a little louder. I tried the official route. I showed up at the next HOA board meeting with photos of the damage and the original property survey proving the lane was never an easement. Victoria chaired the meeting in a cream silk blouse, pearls gleaming like tiny trophies. "Let's hear from Mr. Brooks," she said sweetly, as if she hadn't spent the last month calling me antisocial behind my back. I laid out the facts. She leaned forward, eyes wide with practiced concern. "Ethan, we all appreciate your passion for property lines. But sometimes individual preferences have to yield to the greater good. The community has spoken. The board voted 6-1 to recognize informal access for efficiency. The one dissenting vote was from old Mr. Hargrove, who immediately got a $250 fine for his overgrown hedge the next day. Message received. That night Claire cried again. "I feel like a prisoner in my own house," she said, hand on her belly. I held her and promised it would stop. She didn't know I'd already scheduled the county surveyor for Monday. By week 3 the lane had become Willow Creek's worst-kept secret. 12 cars a day. Tire tracks like a racetrack. My lawn looked like a war zone. Susan Walsh actually thanked me in the grocery store. "The shortcut saves me so much gas. Thanks for being a team player, Ethan." I smiled the same tight smile I perfected since the solar panel witch hunt. Inside, I was calculating exactly how much concrete I'd need for the foundations. Victoria's husband, Richard, showed up one evening while I was measuring the lane. He looked exhausted, like a man who'd lost every argument for years. "Look, Ethan, she's not herself right now. The layoff last year hit her hard. This HOA presidency, it's all she has left." He glanced at the Mercedes parked crookedly across my roses. "Just maybe don't make a big deal?" I offered him a beer. He declined. I went back to measuring. The damage wasn't just cosmetic. Claire's blood pressure hit 148/92. The OBGYN used the words bed rest and early delivery risk. That was the moment I stopped being polite. I filed the building permit for retractable hydraulic bollards the next morning. Perfectly legal on private property, county approved, fire department compliant. The clerk actually high-fived me. "Finally someone standing up to those HOA clowns," she muttered. 3 days later the 72-hour certified letters went out to every resident who'd used the lane. The email to the HOA board was copied to the county recorder. Victoria's reply was instant. "This is harassment. We'll see about that." I printed it, highlighted the word "we," and pinned it above my desk like a trophy. The Bollards were arriving Friday. I spent the next 2 nights installing camera mounts and testing the emergency override key. Claire watched from the porch, feet up, finally smiling for the first time in weeks. "You're really doing this," she said softly. I kissed her forehead. "I've been quiet long enough." Friday morning the installation crew showed up at dawn like ninjas with jackhammers. By noon 2 8-inch steel bollards rose from fresh concrete like chrome middle fingers aimed directly at Victoria's ego. They were painted bright safety yellow, topped with reflective caps, and programmed to rise in 3 seconds flat. The gap between them, exactly 7 feet, looked innocent. The Mercedes was 6.8 feet wide at the body. The mirrors added another 8 inches on each side. Math is a beautiful thing. I posted the required signs myself. Private property, vehicle barriers active and no-through access, emergency access available. Then I sent one last group email with time-stamped photos and the county permit number. Victoria replied all caps. "This is an ACT of war." I screenshotted it and saved it next to the printed letters. Saturday the neighborhood watch app exploded. Susan Walsh posted drone footage of the bollards with the caption, "Our fearless president will handle this." Victoria replied with a heart emoji and the words, "Monday morning, we show solidarity." I made popcorn and showed Claire the thread. She laughed so hard the baby kicked. It was the best sound I'd heard in months. Sunday night I sat on the porch with a beer while the bollard stood guard in the lowered position, silent, legal, and absolutely immovable. Richard's silver Honda pulled up. He looked like he hadn't slept. "She's planning a community drive-through protest tomorrow," he said quietly. 30 cars. She called it civil disobedience. He rubbed his eyes. "She lost her marketing director job 18 months ago. The HOA presidency is the only place she still feels important. Please just be careful. I thanked him for the warning. He drove away shaking his head. Monday 6:30 a.m. Arrived bright and smug. I poured Claire a decaf and we settled on the porch like we were watching the Super Bowl. The cameras were rolling. At 6:32 the first spectators appeared. Susan with her phone up, Bob Clark in a lawn chair. Half the block pretending to walk dogs they'd never walked before. Then the white Mercedes appeared, engine growling like it was personally offended. Victoria had the window down. Phone mounted for live streaming. Watch this everyone, she announced to her growing audience. This is what real leadership looks like. She stopped 30 feet away, studied the Bollards, and smiled the same smile she'd used at the podium the day she destroyed my reputation. 7 feet exactly, she announced to the camera. My car is 6.8. Piece of cake. She revved the engine once, dramatic, unnecessary, and started forward at a confident 15 miles per hour. The body slid through the gap with inches to spare. For one glorious second Victoria thought she'd won. She actually cheered into the live stream. See? Nothing can stop community. Then the side mirrors hit. Clang. Both mirrors slammed into the steel at the exact same instant. The Mercedes stopped dead, wheels still spinning, engine screaming. Victoria's head snapped forward, phone flying into the dashboard. The live stream chat exploded with laughing emojis. She threw the car into reverse, clang again. Forward, clang. She cranked the wheel left, right, left, cursing in a voice that no longer sounded presidential. I sipped my coffee. Claire covered her mouth, shoulders shaking with the kind of laughter that comes after months of fear. Victoria floored it. The engine roared to 7,000 revolutions per minute. Rubber burned. Black smoke poured from the hood. The temperature gauge climbed like a rocket. She was screaming now, actual words mixed with animal sounds, while the transmission made noises no Mercedes was ever designed to make. Neighbors were filming from every angle. Susan's livestream hit 200 viewers. Someone started a slow clap. 90 seconds of mechanical torture later the radiator exploded in a glorious white geyser. The engine seized with a final death rattle that sounded suspiciously like a fart. Steam hissed. Coolant puddled in perfect HO-approved pastel colors across my driveway. Victoria sat frozen, hands white-knuckled on the wheel, mascara running in dramatic streaks. She tried the key. Click. Click. Nothing. Then she did the most Victoria thing imaginable. She climbed out through the sunroof like a drowning rat escaping a sinking yacht. Her designer yoga pants were soaked in coolant. One heel snapped off. She stood on the smoking hood, arms spread like a crucified influencer, and shrieked at the crowd. Look what he did. He tried to murder me. I stood up slowly, still holding my coffee. Ma'am, are you injured? Should I call an ambulance? My voice was pure honey. The fire department arrived in 6 minutes. The tow truck in 12. Officer Martinez took one look at the posted signs, the county permit, the live stream footage of Victoria announcing she was going to show solidarity, and shook his head. Ma'am, you ignored every warning. This is operator error. Victoria's insurance company called while she was still standing in the coolant puddle. Speakerphone, of course. The adjuster's voice rang clear across the block. Claim denied, willful misuse after documented warnings. The applause that followed was spontaneous and beautiful. Even Bob Clark clapped. Susan quietly lowered her phone. Victoria's face went through every stage of grief in under 10 seconds, landing hard on rage. She kicked the bollard, stubbed her toe, and hopped around cursing while the entire neighborhood filmed the sequel. The lawsuit arrived by certified mail 3 days later. Malicious entrapment and emotional distress. Victoria's new attorney demanded I remove the bollards and pay for the totaled Mercedes. I forwarded everything to my own attorney, who laughed so hard he had to put me on hold. This is the easiest dismissal I've ever seen, he said. She live-streamed her own crime. The judge took 37 minutes to read the evidence. Motion to dismiss with prejudice. Victoria was ordered to pay my legal fees, another $2,800 she didn't have. The HOA held an emergency meeting. Attendance was 100%. The vote to remove her as president passed 6-1. Her only supporter was herself. Susan abstained and then quietly changed her Facebook profile picture to a rose garden. Richard filed for divorce the following week. In the settlement papers, he cited irreconcilable differences and financial ruin caused by repeated poor decisions. Victoria moved out of the McMansion and into a one-bedroom across town. The neighborhood Facebook group went strangely quiet on the subject of shortcuts. 6 months later, the roses were back, brighter than ever. Claire gave birth to our daughter Lily, in the peaceful quiet of a house that no longer vibrated with commuter traffic. The Bollards stayed down most days, resting like sleeping dragons. They only rose when the county tested emergency access, which they did twice just to be sure. Then one Tuesday a plain white envelope arrived. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable, perfect, looping cursive that once graced HON newsletters. Inside was a single sheet. Ethan, I was wrong. The shortcut, the rumors, the lawsuit, everything. Losing my job broke something in me and I took it out on everyone else. I'm in therapy now. I volunteer at the animal shelter 3 days a week. Feels smaller. In a good way. I'm sorry. Victoria. I read it twice, then showed Claire. She rocked Lily and smiled the soft smile that had been missing for too long. Tell her we accept, she said. I wrote back 2 lines. Apology received. We're neighbors. Let's keep it that way. The lane is quiet now. Neighbors use Maple Avenue like civilized people. Property values actually went up. Turns out living next to a guy who legally defended his land makes people feel strangely safe. And every once in a while, when I'm watering the roses at dusk, I catch a glimpse of Victoria driving past on the county road. She waves. Polite. Distant. Human. I wave back. So here's the question that keeps me up at night, and I want to hear what you think in the comments. Was Victoria Langford just another power-hungry Hoa Karen who finally got what she deserved, or was she a desperate woman who lost everything because the rest of us let community good become code for stealing from our neighbors? Who was really in the wrong, the homeowner who built steel walls, or the president who thought rules only applied to everyone else? Drop your verdict below. Right or wrong? Let's settle this once and for all.